Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. I think it's been a couple of weeks since we've done a live simply because, well, I was in trial last week, and then the week before that, I had a bunch of stuff and I was in trial. So this is the first time we've been able to get together, and I see in the comments already, Uncivil Law has a question. I have a question about the best way to commit crime. Please help. Little tip of advice there on civil law. Don't commit crime. But if you do, by God, do not take your cell phone. Just saying. Just kidding. That's a joke, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? Don't get all fired up. Anyway, it's been a couple of weeks since we've done a live show. For those of you who have not joined us before, my name is Scott Reich. Yes, I am an actual practicing criminal defense attorney we have our little podcast, our show. We started it, 5 years ago when the old Chris Watts thing, the Chris Watts case was going on, I guess the Chris Watts thing. And, we've grown it from there. The last couple of weeks have been a little touch and go just because of busy trial schedules. But that's what happens when you have somebody that actually practices law that has a podcast as well. Sometimes the podcast will have to take second fiddle to the practice of law, particularly because when you're doing a homicide case, the ones that most people like to talk about, well, you probably want to take advice from a guy that's done a couple of them. Well, that's me. Not to sound braggadocious, but I'm just saying I've done a couple of them. Oh, and that's right. If I hadn't mentioned it, the homicide trial that we did last week, the second-degree murder charge, not guilty. Now, the press reported about 2 hours from the time they started deliberations, that being the jury, until they came back. I think it was closer to about an hour and 15 minutes. But by the time we had to wait for the victim's family and the DA and everybody to show up, it was right about 2 hours. So just saying, pretty good, pretty convincing evidence that my client was not guilty and probably should never have been prosecuted. But that's what happens when you have the power of the state, the government coming after you, and all the resources that they bring with you or bring to them against you. You have to be prepared to basically show up and fight. And my hat's off to my client. He has nerves of steel. A lot of people would have said, Uncle, I'm not doing it. But he was so adamant that he did nothing wrong, that he wasn't going to take any last minute deals, so to speak, if they had been offered. So that's where I was. Hopefully you all will let me know where you all have been the last couple of weeks. And based upon the kind of a low number of clicks that we've received on some videos recently, I'm a little concerned. I need you to all help tell my friends. Maybe it's me, right? It's not. I am a person that accepts reality. Maybe it's me. Maybe my content just hasn't been up to snuff lately, and therefore I will try to make better videos, provide better information. I'll try to do that here in the soon. It looks like we got a super chat from Uncivil Law. Cage match between you and Bruce Rivers. When? I guess my problem is, who's Bruce Rivers? Should I know who he is? Sorry, Uncivil Law. Bruce Rivers. Is he? Oh, I guess he must be another practicing attorney. Never heard of him. But I'm sure he's a fine individual and a fine individual. But hey, if that would it take to get me into cage fighting shape, I guess that's what we have to do. Let's see. I've been doing, peace out, Lisa. I have been doing with In Jail, something I will share at Patreon. All right. Well, sounds good. Would love to. Bruce and Scott. I'm sorry. I don't know who he is. He's the brother of Jordan Rivers. Frank, can you help me out here? Mo, can you guys help me out? Look it up. See who it is. I have no idea. Is he another attorney? He must have I think you may have seen this guy. Doesn't he have sits behind a desk, like his office? Oh, yeah, I think I've seen that guy. Okay, there you go. Yeah, I never met Bruce, but I'm sure he's a splendid individual. I think I saw that guy once. He has like a ton of subscribers. But yeah, well, I needed that win not to be, too, because let me tell you a little known secret here, ladies and gentlemen. You may think that trial attorneys have big egos. Well, you may be right about that, but they're also very, very fragile. And, if they don't win on a regular basis, they start taking it personally, like maybe, it's just not, what's the word I'm looking for? Like you just didn't, maybe you've lost it. Maybe you've lost it. Maybe it was just the bad facts, but it doesn't matter. You blame yourself. You always do. So we'll just have to deal with that. So just remember. So anyway, that's where I was the last couple of weeks, but there's been a lot of stuff going on, particularly in the Brian Kohberger case. We had a show about it the other day. And I get the games that the defense was trying to play. They're trying to push up to that last minute to see who's going to blink. And, well, the defense blinked. Oh, I see here. Bruce Rivers, YouTuber attorney, says, "Stop snitching on yourself," as his tagline. He's not wrong. It's always the defendant's own words that usually get them in the butt. All right? Always the defendant's own words that usually bites them in the end. So don't say a word. The people, you have a right to remain silent. If you think the police are coming to arrest you, you have a right to remain silent. You don't have to answer any questions. It's called pre-arrest silence. And most courts are of the mindset that is not admissible on you. If you think they're coming for you, you don't have to, well, let me tell you guys, this is what's going on. Oh, you want to read my Miranda rights because I'm in custody now? And you're interrogating me about the facts because that's the only time you have to be advised of your Miranda rights. If you just say nothing, that's it. They cannot comment on your silence, your unwillingness to answer questions. What happened? What happened? Can't do that. Keep your mouth shut. Stop snitching on yourself. Let the prosecution find out what your side of the story is. Well, maybe in opening statements or when you take the witness stand at trial. Just something to think about. Joey, Bruce is stop everyone from snitching on yourself. Lawyer up, baby. Lawyer up. I don't know if I've done this in a while. I don't know if I've done this, but I mean, this is the back of my business card that I give to everybody. I'm not going to, well, I could put it up on the screen, but you probably can't see that because it's so tiny, right? But I'll read it to you. It's also got my cell phone on there, but that's no big secret. You could find that anywhere if you needed it. But I refuse to consent to any search of my premises, the location of my arrest, my car, or effects. I wish to exercise my rights under the 5th and 6th Amendment to remain silent and to have my attorney present during any questioning or lineup. If you ignore my exercise of these rights and attempt to procure a waiver, I wish to confer with my attorney prior to any conversation with the law enforcement agent on the subject of waiver. That covers it all, ladies and gentlemen. Boom, right there. One of the proudest moments of my life when I was going through discovery, and there was a picture. It was old, a little older. I've had this on the back of my card from the beginning of my private practice days. And they took a photograph. It was that the back of my card was taped to a telephone on the wall. And there it was with that advisement. Nothing makes me so proud. It's like when a young child, when a young child succeeds, you're like, I raised them well. So yeah, there you go. Bruce Rivers have a short man complex. I don't know how tall he is. I'm 6'3", so I got that going for me. But I don't know. I know some very successful shorter individuals. I don't really put much weight in that thing. So anyway, let's get back to Brian Kohberger. All right. Let's go to Brian Kohberger. So they had a motions hearing last week. Was the week before last? It's been so long. Man, I can't believe we've been out of it so long. I've been so busy. Anyway, the hearing was about the DNA. Of course, we don't have any rulings and orders on anything like that. And of course, what's again in the state of Idaho, it's all put under seal, so nobody gets to see what goes on. And if the defense's argument is that Brian Kohberger's rights were so violated, you would think they would want that out in the public. So the world would be shocked. They would say that is a travesty of a mockery of a sham. What they're trying to do to that Brian Kohberger guy. We need to tell the world. But instead they file it under seal. Now I get it. Oh, it's a grand jury transcript. We're trying to protect everybody. It's a transcript, for God's sakes. Come on, people. The grand jurors never really answer questions anyway. Do we have any doubt as to who the grand jury witnesses were? It was police officers. It was the lead detective. I know you may find this hard to believe, ladies and gentlemen, but a grand jury indictment, it's a rubber stamp. I'm sure you've all heard you can indict a ham sandwich. I have represented witnesses that have gone to a grand jury, and they're like, hey, it doesn't matter what your client, if he testifies or not, asserts his Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination, he's going to be indicted anyway. Then I had another case where, let's just say, it was one of those political things. They're going after somebody to make it look like they were doing something. I won't get into the specifics, but I'm like, hey, I'm not going to have my government employee client testify. Even though I think he's done nothing wrong, he works in law enforcement. He's a good guy, et cetera, et cetera. And, the person that's running the grand jury is like, don't worry about it, Scott. It's okay. They're not really going to be an indictment. It's going to be okay. Okay. Somebody gets indicted if the prosecutor wants them to get indicted. If the prosecutor doesn't want them to get indicted, they don't get indicted. It is that simple. It's that simple. Okay. And hearsay evidence is admissible, right? So you can come in and talk about layers and layers of what people talked about. The lead detective say, well, I didn't interview the person personally, but I read a summary of a statement that an officer gave with his interview of a witness. So I've read that. So you have multiple layers of hearsay that are coming in. Rarely are eyewitnesses called about anything. And then the witnesses are called. Maybe, the prosecutor lets the grand juror ask a couple of perfunctory questions. Was that at 3 a.m. or was that at 2 a.m.? My notes were unclear. I couldn't read it very clearly. Let me clarify. It's 3 a.m. That's it. And then the grand jury says, hey, here's a true bill. Why don't you guys go ahead and sign this and we'll be out and we'll call that next case for the indictment. That's the way it works. Prosecutor wants an indictment, they're going to get an indictment. Prosecutor doesn't want an indictment, they're not going to get an indictment. Do you think the grand jurors come up with what the charges are to be? No. It's all typed up before the grand jury even convenes, or if they've been convened for a while, they usually meet like the first Thursday of every month. And the grand jury will meet 15 or more people. They have enough to have a quorum. And prosecutors will literally be like, I need to indict this gun case. I need 15 minutes of grand jury time. So they slot in at 8:30 to 8:45. They have this time. So they'll bring in the detective and they'll say, hey, detective, tell me what happened. Well, on this particular date in the state of blank, city and county of blank, we made contact with the defendant. He was a prohibited person. I checked that, verified that through court records, and we found that he also had a weapon on him. All right. So are you saying then that he is a prohibited person and he should be charged with possession of a weapon by a previous offender? Why, yes, I am. Grand jurors have any questions? No, I do not. Sign the true bill. They are indicted. That is how simple it is. Okay? Just so you know. Take it for what it's worth on anything. On anything. And remember, the prosecutor makes those charging decisions. The grand jurors, rubber stamp. That's all they are. All right. So we got Kohberger, grand jury. They're saying, the defense is saying there's errors that were made in the assembly of the grand jury. I still think it's ironic. They said they violated all these rules of evidence. Rules of evidence don't apply. I just explained that to you. Doesn't matter. I think that motion filed by the defense for Mr. Kohberger is going to fall flat on its face. Now, the prosecution, of course, asked for more time. And what do they care now? There's no speedy trial date. That's it. He waived speedy trial. Like I said, Brian Kohberger blinked. He gets a big W for big wimp. Okay? He knows better than anyone, if he was simply out for a nice evening stroll or drive, I guess you should say, a drive, but maybe he, swung by, little frat house there, little house there right on the sorority fraternity hill there. Only he knows, right? The DNA is the DNA. The judge is going to have to rule. They have a trial date in October. Nothing says that Mr. Kohberger could not ask for a continuance on October 1st. I know he could have. He could have waited until October 1st to waive speedy trial to see if the prosecution was gonna blink. And instead, Brian Kohberger blinked. Fine, I'll waive speedy trial. Oh man, really? The only shot this guy had at winning, and I'm not saying I'm encouraging Brian Kohberger. I'm just saying, let's talk realistic. You come here to get the perspective of a practicing criminal defense attorney. The only shot Brian Kohberger is going to have of winning that trial was if he had gone to trial on October 2nd. Now, I get his attorneys want more time. Attorneys always want more time. And when there's bad facts, you'll say, I'll set this case for a trial in the next 10 years. Not going to happen that way, but that's, some cases like, I don't care if this ever goes to trial. And so they blinked. They could have said, push it. We're going to trial, judge. You better start making some rulings. You better start doing it. And now all the pressure's off. Not even any dates to set any more dates as of yet. Well, I take that back. I think I just saw today there was a request to videotape the hearing set on September 1st at 1 p.m. Regarding the case there in Latah County, Brian Kohberger. So I have a hearing set for that particular day. And he says denied. Nope. Please see the governing court pool. So apparently there's going to be a pool of reporters, but we already know the defense has filed a motion that they didn't want anything. And the defense doesn't want any cameras in there. And then the state granted the motion. We talked about this the other day. Order. So they're extended their motions filed on August 24th. The defense shall be filed no later than September 14th, and the reply on September 20th as well. So there you go. Another extension. And I get it. But there's nothing that says you can't wait. Wait it out. See if they got all their witnesses lined up. All their testing is done. The prosecution is probably about as prepared as the defense is. Okay? And by this time, what is this case now? 6 months old since he's been there? Right? October will be 6 months from time of the arraignment. So about 6 months. It goes back to November of last year. So 8, but since he's been charged, I think it took a couple months. But you know what I'm saying. By now, the defense has gone through and they have pulled all of the relevant stuff. There's always stuff, but you're going to see the main stuff. The phone GPS, the DNA. You've investigated your client's whereabouts. You started the mitigation for the death penalty issues. So what, right? Go try the damn case. What I was taught and told by a great attorney, and I mean great, this guy could cross-examine somebody like you've never seen before. He teaches what they refer to as the chapter method, where you just have little things. This is what I want to cover. Yeah, these questions. Next chapter. It's great. But his firm used to have a quote on their website. It was great. It said, "Eventually, you have to stop looking for that email or that smoking gun letter. Some point, you have to just go try the case." Bottom line, you got to go try the case. Is the defense case really going to get any better as time goes on? No, unlikely. Will the prosecution's case get better? Of course it will. It always does. The only thing that the prosecution has to worry about is hurting all of their witnesses, the state's witnesses that they're going to have. Are they a bunch of college students? Are they going to move? What's going on? The job expands to the amount of time given. And if the defense had pushed them, they could have showed up. Hey, judge, we were just keep getting some of this discovery, or give them a cutoff date. If they don't give us to us by, September 1st, they can't use it at trial anymore. But they blinked. They could have waited until October 1st. Say, judge, we found this. We got to go investigate it some more. Need to continue. See if they had their ducks lined up. But most people don't do that. And this is what the problem is in most litigation these days. I've said this before. Anybody can go be a lawyer. All right. Just about anybody. You can go to law school. It's not that difficult. Hell, I could teach you what you needed to know probably better than the law school could in plain, simple terms. Okay. And so you got lawyers that are going to go, write contracts, although they may be on the road out here with little chat GBT stuff, right? They'll just doing it. Then you got litigators. Well, litigators may be on their way out too, because, they got all these chat GBT things saying what cases are worth. They can draft all the pleadings. They're all boilerplate nonsense anyway. And none of that stuff goes to trial, if ever. A car accident case, big case, maybe a patent case. Okay, whatever. Most of the time, they don't. Where most of the cases are tried in a courthouse are in the criminal division. And like I said, anybody can be a lawyer. Just about anybody can be a litigator. But if you talk to most litigators, oh, wow, how many times you gone to trial? Ooh, we just about made it. It would have been like the second time in 7 years we would have gone to trial, right? Go ask any legitimate trial attorney. Oh, man, I go to trial once a month, maybe once every 2 months. I think COVID was the biggest stretch I ever had, not doing a trial on average, a felony trial on average about once a month. Here we are. I think I've done 6 of them already this year. It's kind of slow, going into the first of the year. But you got to go try the case. But most people won't want to do that. That's what it is. Go try the case. Sally Vello has a question. Have laws changed in Denver to cater to shoplifters and flash mob thieves that it's only a ticket and so it happens more and more? Yes, the city council in Denver changed a lot of the stuff. They don't prosecute a lot of the stuff anymore. But hell, I'm not sure there's that many businesses left in the downtown area where a lot of the shoplifting takes place. There's not anywhere to go because all the homeless encampments and things like that are down there. So whatever's left, there's usually not much on the shelves down there. They've gone away. So yes, the penalty's been reduced. Everything is all about, ooh, don't do it again. We're sorry. Hell, you can be convicted in a municipal court case in Denver these days, and you can still have the case sealed. you can be convicted and have it sealed. I think with the exception of a DV. I mean, okay, plead guilty, I guess, pay a fine, leave, get some probation. I mean, don't even get me started. Don't even get me started on that. Okay. And then, it's gotten pretty bad there. Question here is, Scott, what's the next step for Rex Heuermann? Probably motions. My guess is, they're going to wait and see if they find out if there's any more bodies that come up in that whole Giglo Beach homicide cases, or if they link him to other cases. He had a timeshare or something in Las Vegas, a house in South Carolina. So yeah, we'll see, have to see on him. Rex Heuermann's in a spot. Once again, they tore the guy's house apart, and what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, it's just, I don't know. Wasn't it the guy that was the lead investigator at one point? I think was recently arrested for some sort of sexual misconduct charge. The whole thing is weird. I don't get all that weirdness stuff, all the sex stuff. Hey, let me go meet my prostitute friend online, and then I'm going to kill her. There you go. I just don't get that. I just don't understand why people do that. Hey, was it good for you? No, it was good. It was great for me. Let me kill you. I mean, who comes up with that mentality? I don't get it. I just do not get it. Yeah, the Gilgo Beach. I don't know. It's just a little weird. So I don't know. Christine, please don't forget to hit and ring the bell on your socials. Yes, thank you. I always forget to do that. Remember, subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, leave me a comment, and hit that little bell so you get notifications of when we go live like tonight. And remember, we are going to go and do our Patreon show, which we also have not done in several weeks. And that ought to be good. Oh, that's good. Moments in Trading. ChatBGT was able to accurately explain what sovereign citizens drivers are claiming and why they are wrong. Well, it wouldn't take a lot to say what they're claiming and why they're wrong. That's for sure, because I don't think they've ever prevailed on anything. Do we have another super chat, or was that uncivil law? S. Jane. Hi, Scott. Glad you and your team got a little break from the trials. I know RICO can be both civil and criminal, but if the leader is pegged on all counts, how much is needed to get the co-conspirators? Well, what happens in a COCA case is that there will come down an indictment, and usually count one will say, this is the conspiracy. And then they're going to bring in and explain who all the actors are. And normally they have to prove a predicate act to show that somebody engaged in that. But basically everyone's charged with the conspiracy. They may have participated in two other predicate acts. Usually it's two or more predicate acts. Then it basically becomes like what's the word I'm looking for? It's a conspiracy. It's a racketeering case. But I explained this the other day, and hopefully this makes sense. Let's say I take Frank and Mo, and when I say we're going to go rob some houses, we're going to go burglarize some houses. Now, I wouldn't do that, nor would Frank and Mo do that, because that would be illegal. But hypothetically, if we did, and I say, let's go, let's roll, and we go rob the houses, and, we do 5 houses. Ultimately, they get caught. I was partaking of a fine cigar in one of the homes, which most home invasion people do. I don't know what it is. And I leave a cigar butt, and they get my DNA, and they trace it back to me. And somehow they figure out that Frank and Mo have gone with me. The prosecutor could say, yeah, I'm going to charge this guy with 5 burglaries. I'm going to stack him up so high he will never get out of prison. Okay. Or the prosecutor could say, ooh, I have 2 or more acts, and these guys were acting as a conspiracy. So therefore, I will charge a racketeering charge, an organization of people. It can be any organization, loosely organized. It doesn't have to be a corporation, a criminal enterprise. It's not like we sit around and have bylaws for our criminal enterprise. Just be a loosely associated, in fact, group of individuals. And you could be charged with a racketeering charge. It just depends if the prosecutor wants to go down that road. Now, remember, conspiracy is difficult to prove a conspiracy. You got 3 people. Maybe somebody confessed, right? It's always the defendant's own words that get them. And they have, a confession. They got a conspiracy agreement between 2 or more people to commit illegal acts. But it has to be illegal. Remember, if I said, hey, let's go get this stuff out of this house, but it was my house, I didn't tell Frank and Mo it was my house, but it was my stuff, and I just want to go get it. So it really wasn't a burglary. So it's got to be illegal. And there you go. That's the difference between just being charged with a bunch of burglaries or being charged with a racketeering. All the people still have to be proven to be in a conspiracy. Now, what happens when you have a conspiracy is that implicates 801D2E. Okay. And I bet you that Bruce guy doesn't talk about 801D2E motions. Okay. Whoever he is. Just kidding. Bruce Rivers, whatever his name is. I don't know. I'm sure he's a nice guy. 801D2E. Statements made by a co-conspirator in furtherance of the conspiracy is a admissible statement, and it's non-hearsay. Because remember, normally the people can only testify on the witness stand as to what they testified to. But if there's someone else who was part of the conspiracy, it's going to say this is the conspiracy. Now, the judge has to make a finding of a conspiracy. And, there's so many, you got conspiracies every day. But what it comes down to is if the judge says, yes, there's a conspiracy, but they still have to go through the analysis. Was there a conspiracy between all these people? Some people will be like, no, they weren't a conspiracy. Or maybe they withdrew from the conspiracy. There's defenses to conspiracy. I withdrew. It wasn't a conspiracy. It wasn't illegal. I was acting on my own. But the biggest part is it has to be illegal. And 99.9% of the time, it's actually something illegal. And we won't get into all the political racketeering cases that are going on out there because it always seems to offend somebody. Oh, Scott, you're pro this guy. Oh, Scott, you're negative this guy. Well, listen, if people think I'm pro or negative this guy, maybe it's calling it down right down the middle, calling balls and strikes. I am no fan of either of the political parties. I think they are all criminals. And frankly, members of Congress is the biggest criminal enterprise in the world. Take a look at insider trading, for God's sakes. Members of Congress commit an illegal act for you and me, but they get that inside information, go trade on it, and they learn from it from their other individuals, other members. Do that 2 or more times, my God, you could probably be considered a racketeering enterprise. You just need a couple of predicate acts. There's a conspiracy to loot the treasury and enrich their friends. Sounds like a conspiracy I could make, with the federal government, state government. They all do it the same. They're all criminals. They really are. Let's call it for what it is. If somebody were to look at that, they say, oh my goodness, you're right. We could probably meet those elements, but they don't. They never go after them because they just go around trading favors and, well, we got to go after this guy, but not too hard because eventually they're going to come after us. And that's going to mess up the whole thing of us looting the treasury and enriching our friends and my family. And, then nobody's going to be able to loot and enrich anybody. Because by God, the people will be so upset when they find out what really goes on here. All right. We don't want to go down that road too much. Just saying. I can see it. All right. Was there another super chat there? Uncivil Law, glad to see you're back. Thanks. We've got to have you on again soon. Sis, watching a great lawyer slay a cross-examination is so satisfying. There really is. And sometimes I'm telling you, cross-examination can be it has been told that cross-examination is the greatest truth-seeking tool ever invented. And I totally agree. And not everybody can do it well. Not everybody can do it well. You have to be able to kind of jump on something. I was going across from one of my attorneys. He's got a hearing coming up in the next week or so. And he was telling me about, this is the question I was going to ask. I'm like, no. What you need to be able to show is that, you went to see this individual and you had him sign a document, or you didn't have him sign the document. No, you need to break it up and say, you're a responsible attorney. Are you not? Yes, I am. You were prepared. You talked with this guy. You did everything you could to prepare to go meet with this visit. In fact, you even wrote up this document for him to sign. And every time you've done that. And then you drove 6 hours from your place to his place. You had this document ready to go. You went there. You talked to him for this amount of time. You didn't do it. No, you didn't. And you left there having him not sign that document that you spent so much time preparing for. And now you want us to believe that you had that conversation with the client and he agreed to it, but he didn't sign the document, the one that you had with him, So you got to just break it down and say, well, really, let's really take a look at this. I got a trial coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm already salivating at being able to cross-examine a witness that's going to be testifying. I did nothing wrong. I was duped into everything. Oh, really? Let's talk about that. Hold on, Judge. This may take a little while. So yeah, it's nothing better than good cross-examination. That's why I love watching good lawyers. And, like the Kohberger case. I don't want any lawyer. I don't want any cameras in the courtroom. Really? Why not? Why not? Your game, if you're the attorney, if you know the world is watching, you're going to raise your game. Both the prosecution, the defense, the judge, they're going to want to get it right. It's just human nature. Everybody's watching. You want to do well. And it shows the world what the hell's going on in our court system. If the prosecutor is a complete bumbling idiot, don't you think the constituents have a right to know? Because most of them can't go down and hang out at the courthouse. If the guy got railroaded because his attorney was completely incompetent, and I'm not saying Kohberger's attorneys are, they're doing what they need to do. They're filing the motions. They're doing their job. But let's just say they totally bungle it. The world should know, man, that guy got railroaded. His attorney sucked. I could have done better. I Googled that and I knew what they were talking about. So let's see. Jody, I think those smash and grab punks, we should have their stuff taken out of their rooms, leave them bare, see how that goes. Okay. I'm okay with that. I think, what's the best word I'm looking for? I think people are finally getting sick and tired of having their crap stolen. It may be their crap. It may be crap, but the fact that they bought it, it's theirs. It's their junk. And they should have the right to choose to do with it, which they choose to do. I mean, this is America, for God's sakes. We get to have private property. We get to have real estate. Remember, everywhere else in the world, you don't get to own it. The state gets to tell you if you get to own it. The king would be like, hey, yeah, I'm going to give the Duke and the Earl over here some property. Maybe all those little peasants, they can stay there if they work the land. But that's what our country was at, right? Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, private property rights. It was a radical idea, ladies and gentlemen. We like our stuff. And the government has one job to do. That's protect our individual liberties and protect us from the people trying to violate those individual liberties. And the state shouldn't go around doing it to everybody else in the name of protecting everybody else. Mel. You're not wrong, Mel. Criminality is a prerequisite for political career. That, and you have to kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. You have to be able to be bought and sold. That's really what it is. And I joke that because, I think most people are like, oh, when I should be if I was in charge, things would be different. Yeah, probably not. Because you couldn't get there unless you were bought and sold by somebody. And that's just the way it is. And I remember having a conversation at a fine establishment in town here one night. And I said, yeah, maybe I should run for, state house or state senate. I think I could win, blah, blah, blah. And they looked at me like, oh, young, naive Scott. Why would you want to do such a thing? Like, those people work for us. Do you think they make any decisions without what we say here on this couch? No. They work for us. We tell them what to do. And that's the way it's run. I don't care if it's a state. I don't care if it's the federal level. That's the way it is. And I can solve that problem so darn quick. It'd be so simple. But the problem is the people that would have to pass that law would mean they would get cut out of the money. Like, think about it. A state legislator in most states makes $30,000, maybe $40,000 a year. Not a lot of money. But yet they all seem to get very wealthy during their tenure. They always seem to have a little private consulting gig on the side. It's almost like it could be a criminal enterprise. Like they were, laundering money. Just saying. Not that And I was reading, we covered this story the other day, and I saw a story about it the other day. It was the guy in Ohio, the state speaker. What was his name? Stackhouse or something like that. What was it? Is it Iowa? Iowa speaker. Speaker of the House. Convicted, right? I think it was Iowa. Okay, look, we got it. We got Dennis Hastert. He was one ex-speaker of the House, admitted to sex crimes. Iowan Deborah Sandoval faces prison time. Let's see here. Must have been Ohio.
Larry Householder.
Yes. Householder. So this guy, Larry Householder, he was the Speaker of the House. Like he went away, came back, and they came up with this plot. They were going to basically fund all this money, and they were going to change the law that was going to have this bailout for their Public Utilities Commission there. It was an interesting story, but a lot of times, when we talk about these kind of white collar type of crimes, let's face it, they don't get as much interest as they do as, the blood and guts, the knives and guns stories. But it's just as interesting, I think, because here you have a guy, he's the former Ohio House Speaker. He gets 20 years in prison for masterminding a corruption scheme, the largest in the state. The guy's 64 years old, and he will probably die in prison. Prosecutors only asked for 16 years, and he got 20. That's how much. The trial went for 7 weeks, and he orchestrated a $60 million bribery scheme secretly funded by the Akron-based utility company, First Energy. First, to secure householders' power, elect his allies, and then to pass a $1.3 billion nuclear plant bailout and stifle a referendum on overturning the law with a dirty tricks campaign. So what do we talk about? Loot the treasury and enrich their friends, right? It wasn't his $1.3 billion. He just gave away Ohioans $1.3 billion because the First Energy made a bunch of crappy business decisions. And since, well, they're a public utility, they're regulated. We can't have them fail. Who's going to turn the lights on? Who cares? Let them fail. Let somebody come in, pick up the pieces for pennies on the dollar and deal with it. But of course, like most things in life, you get these utilities, you get the large corporations, they come in, they hire all their lobbyists, they come up with these plans to promote the legislation that's going to help them. Hey, by the way, we just had some really bad decision makings. Our guys at the top are idiots. And sure, I mean, it's a $1.3 billion. And you know who should pay for that? Not the idiots that engaged in that stupid business decision. No. We can't do that. Let's come up with a bill. We'll get enough support. We'll funnel money to old Householder. He's the speaker. He'll get all his cronies elected. Then we'll put this bill through. It's only $1.3 billion. I mean, really, is that much? $1.3 billion, right? Don't worry about it, people. Don't worry about it. Oh, and then somebody says, oh, that's illegal. Oh my gosh. So what you're saying is when private companies work with the government to bail them out, that's a crime. Oh, and you're not telling where the money's coming from. Oh my goodness. You mean to tell me that there would be laws against that? I am shocked and I am outraged. As a member of the community, I am flabbergasted that this is only prosecuted once or twice a year at most. Most of these politicians could be charged at any given time, but, well, they're not. And so what do I say? Politicians do only a couple of things. Loot the treasury, like for $1.3 billion, and enrich their friends. Just bailed out their buddies for $1.3 million. There you go. And everybody acts like, oh, I'm shocked, or they don't care because, I voted for that guy. He's not that bad. He just made a couple mistakes. No, they knew exactly what they were doing. But coincidentally, in that Householder case, not a single person from the entity, the electric company, has been charged. Not a single one. And they'll say, well, the company is the one that first reported it. Well, okay, but who is the company that came up with the plot in the first place, and why aren't they being prosecuted? Just something to think about, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but, you start seeing enough things over and over and over again, you start to realize that, hey, I'm starting to see a pattern here. And all those old guys, remember when you're young, you're like, oh, man, those old guys, they don't know what they're talking about. I remember sitting around when I was young, my grandfather, politicians are a bunch of crooks. No, they aren't, Grandpa. They're here to help us. They're the best guys in the world. No, they're not. They're not. They're criminals. And same thing with, we got to be careful of the prosecutors and the judges too. And hey, there's some bad defense attorneys out there as well. But, usually the bar, polices themselves. So if there's a dirtbag, they're going to find out about it. They're going to make sure they go away. Let's see here. Looks like another super chat. Let's see if I can't make this. Well, for whatever reason. All right. Well, the super chat is not popping up on the screen. I'm not sure why, but I will read it. Oh, there it is. Frank saves the day. If a fiduciary owes someone duties, including properly disclosing information, is that fiduciary attorney complicit in any breach of fiduciary duty if they aid and abet the client's breaches? The answer is potentially yes. That could be a potential conspiracy or theft or breach of fiduciary duty, which is a civil claim in and of itself. Right? A fiduciary has a duty to act in the benefit of the client, not in their own interest. Otherwise, they have a conflict of interest. So yes, S. Jane, they do. The fiduciary has a duty to the client to disclose what they need to disclose so that the client can make the best decision possible. Yep, Julie, that's right. No all caps. Let's see here. So I love Scott's Dumb Criminal of the Day segment too. Well, thank you. You know, some days that's hard, but some days there's no shortage of dumb criminals at all. Let's see here. Like if you bring a case against for breach of fiduciary duty, is the attorney a co-defendant? So if you bring a case against a fiduciary for breach of fiduciary duty, is their attorney a co-defendant? Potentially. Depends on what advice they gave to the individual, right? So think about it. Let's do a real life example. The Murdoch case. Alec Murdoch had clients, fiduciary relationship. He sends them over to his buddy that was convicted, the money manager guy. Can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he is supposed to manage the money for the best interest of the client, make sure it gets a certain amount of money. He's there to act in the client's best interest, not his own. But then he starts loaning money to himself, to Murdoch. He's not supposed to do that. That's a breach of fiduciary duty. And if the attorney knows that they're doing something and they don't disclose it, then they have it. I mean, they're just as guilty. That's why there's laws like in large corporations. If board members find out that something is taking place that is illegal or corrupt or unethical, they're supposed to report it. If they don't report it, you know, they get kind of a safe harbor if they report it. But if they ignore it or say, oh, we can fix this, then yes, they need to, they could potentially be held responsible as well. Okay, S.J., assuming the attorney also has a fiduciary duty to the same people. Yes. But you also have to remember is who does the attorney represent? So if there's an estate, let's just give an example. If somebody has an estate, somebody dies, the executor is administering the estate or executrix. They have a fiduciary duty to make sure all the, bills and everything are compiled, paid off, any debts that are owed. But they may have to hire an attorney for some of those processes, drafting illegal documents or something to that effect. And yes, the executor is entitled to some reasonable fees, but let's say they're excessive fees and the attorney doesn't call them out because maybe they were buddies. They think he's fair. He's going to put a lot of work into it. Once again, the attorney has a duty and it can be found by not disclosing it. He breaches that duty as well. But you got to see who he works for. Did he represent the individual or did he represent the estate? Depends on who they represent, the attorney. If he represents the individual in his capacity as the executor, then he may not have a duty to report it. But if he is an attorney that represents the estate, then he must. So, cynicism is the shortcut to virtue. I like it. Julie out of Florida, crazy criminals there. Florida does have a lot of crazy criminals. I'm not sure if it's something in the water, the heat, maybe the bugs, maybe they all have Lyme disease from little mosquitoes biting them. I don't know, but it just really makes me think that there's something in the water down there. Wow. Can you believe it's already 7:00 and we didn't take a single call, Frank? That's totally my fault. It goes by so fast. Yeah. I really wish I could do this like 3 or 4 hours a day. I could do it. Just anyway. Well, I guess what we need to do is tell everybody go to our link below, become a Patreon, and then we'll do the call-in show. How's that? We have a lot of catching up to do over there as well. All right, so we talked a little bit about Kohberger. We talked about this ex-Speaker of the House, Larry Householder, there in Ohio. Talked a little bit about politicians. Yeah. We talked about some guy named Bruce in California, I think. We love Bruce. We don't know who he is. I'm sure he's a swell guy, but apparently does some criminal defense is what it looks like. But he has 1 million subscribers. So if, some of his subscribers want to head over this way, maybe we should have a conversation with Bruce. Say, hey, man, you want to come on our show? Just something to think about. I don't know. It's always, I saw this, I'm not going to find it, but it just seems like I saw this meme and I was sharing it with the lovely Miss Kristen the other day. And it basically said, my life can be defined as, if I can just get through this next week, I'll be okay. And that's literally the way I feel. If I can just get through the next couple of days, next week, next trial, it's all going to get so much easier. No, it's just busy, 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 which is a good problem to have. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think I've had this many dead bodies. And I mean, like homicide cases stacked up, like 6 of them, I think right now we're going, and plus some other serious stuff. What's coming? Is this the aliens from planet Zynga?
Yeah, there's a bunch coming with the same.
What? They're raiding.
Are coming.
Who are the aliens?
All right.
Okay.
We love it.
Jesus.
All right. Well, they must have been here for a while because they're not showing up as viewers. We love the channel engagement, though. Send that through the roof, right? I think they're planned by the Bruce guy, Bruce Rivers. All right. Thanks for joining us tonight, everybody. Come join us for our Patreon show here in about 5 minutes. We're going to hit it fast. We're going to put up the call-in line immediately and have everybody there. And we'll see if the aliens show up as well. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you next time.